Peace, everyone. Welcome to Moorish Monday with Abdullah Il Talib Mosi Bey. Thank you all for joining me again on Magnet Pyramid Crystal YouTube. You see below my website, mooresandmasonry.org. To get my books, go to mooresandmasonry.org for Moors and Masonry Part 1, Moors and Masonry Part 2, How Her Venus and Moon Rule, etymology vocabulary, supplementary 1, Masonic complements and square and the connection to measurement and timekeeping, and Illuminati and illumination of the mind. Go to mooresandmasonry.org. Also for recorded classes, such as the Moorish Treaty Protection of Constellations course, the Moorish Body Politic Formation, Constitutional and Governmental Principle course, also the Using Legal Principles to Draft Motions and Pleadings, Part 1 and 2, Philosophy, Jurisprudence, the Philosophy of Law, and Running Government, and handling legal cases. Also, the Applicational Law and Evidentiary Standards, Part 1 and 2. That's also on the Moroccan Post Media YouTube page. I want to give a brother thanks to Brother Hank for once again for offering this Moorish Monday platform to me. I've been on this platform since the first Monday in December of 2023. So I'm excited to bring this high level content to you. My special guest is Vicarious Ill. Brother Hank is Vicarious in the behind backstage. He texted me about 10 minutes ago. Said he would have to use his phone. Said his computer was not getting him access to get on. So
no, he's not here, bro.
All right. So once again, thank you all for joining me, waiting for our guest, Vicarious Ill to get on. You can check out the other videos, Moorish Monday, and as well as other guests that there's a great content. Brother Hank has had some wonderful Phil Valentine, Red Pill, brother Panic. You have Lord Strayhorn, then with numerology, and host of other wonderful guests, dynamic guests, very knowledgeable. I met Bill Valentine personally a couple of times. Of course, I've known Red Pill for 18 years. And I think he's had, and a few others, wonderful guests. So if you haven't subscribed to the page, please do so. Hit the like button, subscribe, the notification button. I have my special guest. He's been on about 4 or 5 times. He was with us about 3 weeks ago. This is Brother Vicarious. He did the lesson on the science of breathing, which is spirituality. The word spirit means breath. So he placed the word spirit in its etymological and cultural setting. A wonderful job. That's on this platform. That is on the Magnet Pyramid Crystal YouTube platform. Without further ado, I'm handing over to Vicarious Ill.
Peace. Can you hear me, brother?
Yeah, absolutely. Loud and direct. Tell
All
it.
right,
Tell,
so
I know
yeah,
you were here. You were, although you were on here about 3 weeks ago. Tell us, do your little introduction. Tell us about yourself. He's frozen.
it's frozen.
All right.
You hear me
All
now?
right. You're good. Yeah. 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 You're back. All right.
Okay. So I was on here maybe a few weeks ago talking about spirit actually being breath. This time around, I wanted to pretty much ask the brothers and sisters a question about time. I hear a lot of brothers and sisters talking about time never was when man was not. They're quoting the prophet. And I'm wondering, does anybody actually know what that means? Does anybody actually know why or what time is? And if time never was when man was not, when was man not? And was time still existing when man was not? Now, if time never was when man was not, let's first get into what is time. Now, I can't show my screen once again. I do apologize for that. It's a computer thing. I'm not very computer savvy. So you have to excuse me. I'm getting this done. Everybody still can hear me.
Yes. Yes. You're good.
Now, time is broken down mostly the study of time itself. Now, they have the study of time, and then they have the study of
You
time.
got to tell brother man to sit down somewhere. He can't be walking around. That's distracting.
You hear that, by serious?
Yeah, he told me to stop moving. Yes, sir.
All right.
You gotta forgive me at the moment, but all right. So, how about now?
Yeah. Yeah. You good,
Now,
brother? Yeah. Just
time
want
is
to be station.
basically now when dealing with time, you have the study of time and the study of time instruments. Now, when we dealing with time instruments, they like to call it horology. Horology deals with horo coming from hours and logi, of course, being the study of. Now, horology in itself doesn't study time, but it studies the instruments that calculate time. Your basic watches, sundials, um, water dials, things like that. Now, chronometry basically gets in the study of all of that plus time itself. It measures everything, the different changes in, I don't want to say history, but in life moving from one point to another point. Now, we look at the different cultures that existed on the planet, and all of them had their own version of studying or calculating time. Now we hear about the basics of how most Freemasonry, how some of that is calculated, but Freemasonry got all of that from someone older than them. Now, when we get into the sexagesimal system is everything based on the number 60. So we get that pretty much from the Babylonians. Later on, the Egyptians also used it as well. Now, in that sexagesimal system, that's where we get the calculations of 60 minutes in an hour, 60 seconds in the minute. When you get into calculating seconds now, seconds is a touchy thing because it's done in different variations. Now, remember, we're talking about time. Your question should be, is time precise, or is time pretty much a hypothesis or educated guess, depending on certain faculties that add up to what gives that theory? Now, the second is based in the cesium atom. They call it cesium 55. Now, cesium 55, they take the time to measure or calculate how many pulses within that last valence electron, or how many times it circulates around that nucleus. And that's how they get the measurements of a second. Now, when you're dealing with the ancients utilize that same science, but in a different manner, because time is something that was weaved into our very culture, and our culture is imitated all over the planet. Now, when you're dealing with, let's say, the clock, Now, the clock has its origins, it's Latin pretty much, and it actually means bell. That came about later on. Now, we're talking about time, not the calculations of it just yet. The first calculations was based in looking at the stars or looking at the heavens. And then looking at the heavens, the ancient ones found different ways to calculate just by the movement of certain stellar patterns. Now, the basic one that we all use on this planet right now that's caught up in everything, even our religions, that's the solar religions, especially, is the movement of the sun. Everything we deal with now, whether it captures in religion, most sciences, the dynamics of physics, everything corresponds to either the sun or moon in the different planets that we witness from here, but it's coming from a earth perspective. So looking at it from that perspective, time never was when man was not. Well, when did we start calculating time? And is time that the way it was calculated before, is it the same way we utilize it now? We look at everything as a going from one point way back when into moving forward, and they call that going from the past to the future. But is that really how time should be measured? Because a lot of things evolve that we utilize now in modern times to calculate time. It had to go through an evolving period to even be that way. Coming from the aspect of the Big Bang, how, let's just say, how deep would the study of gravity really be? Coming from the Big Bang Theory, would gravity be something that evolved as things got further and further apart, or as they got closer together? Or is gravity just a constant thing? It's everywhere. What goes up must come down, as they tell us. All of these things go through a period of what we now call time. But that period of evolution, that period of transmuting into something else, all of that is based in a time frame and how we calculate it. How we know when it's time to grow food or go through do agricultural things is based in the movement of the sun and the movement of the moon. So time has always been an important factor with our people and other nations, period. I don't think there's a nation on the planet that doesn't use some form of astronomy, astrology, and mathematics to measure time. So I want to read something to you. Since I can't see you on the screen, I'll move through it real fast. All right. As it relates to physics, time is the measure of a change in a physical quantity, such as the position of the sun in the sky or a heartbeat. It is a magnitude that is used to quantify the duration of similar events. Time is also an infinitely divisible, unending line that cannot be quantified. The word clock has Latin origins. What does it mean? Bell. The word clock comes from the Latin word cloca, which means bell. Our ancestors needed to predict critical moments such as seasonal changes, celestial events, like solstices, equinoxes, eclipses, weather patterns, natural disasters, cultural and religious observances, navigation cues, agricultural cycles, and timekeeping milestones. Now, these predictions were essential for survival, agriculture, navigation, religious practices, and societal organizations, shaping their understanding of the cosmos and guiding their daily lives. We look at time on a basic level of just telling time, but don't really understand how it all came about, why it's being used against us. We have someone telling us when it's daylight savings time. Why is daylight savings time being calculated? All through the different cultures, the different religions, they're telling you about the movement of the sun. They'll call it different mythological names, as in crucified savior, and
Mithra,
other things.
Mithra,
Mithra,
Zodiacus, Mithra, Dionysus,
yeah,
Bacchus,
hmm
Zodiacus,
and they have
Jesus,
their holiday, and all
Christ.
their holidays
Mhm.
revolve around it. All of their holidays. We deal with four cardinal keyword cardinal, four cardinal points of two equinoxes and two solstices that are enraptured in almost every religion on the planet. There's almost no religion on the almost no religion on the planet that does not mention those four cardinal points somewhere in their theology. It's in the Quran. They talk about the star Sirius. In the Bible, well, it's different verses in the Bible that really gets into um, constellations and stars, even though they say they're against, you know, for the
Lucifer,
most part,
Lucifer.
astrology. Yeah,
Then we
Lucifer,
mentioned
the
Lucifer,
light
which
bearer,
is Venus.
Lucifer
Yeah,
being
light bearer.
Venus.
Yeah, Lucifer. It's mentioned in the Bible.
So, but they also mention star constellations in the Bible. They mention about Arcturus. They mention about Orion. All of these are mentioned in the Bible as well. So the Bible even has their periods where they look to astronomy or astrology and they map even those same things. Now, with predicting the critical moments, a lot of times they develop the mythology that they would do around that moment. Like we have that time period with that they call Christmas. All right, which when properly understood, it's talking about a period of the sun as it's going down to the longer nights and shorter days. They call it a death because it's like the dying of the light. They synonymously match darkness with death and day or light with life. With that being the case, the lowest point or December 22nd, which we call Capricorn, when the sun hits Capricorn, it goes through what they call a dying period and it dies for 3 days. And it starts to move again around December 25th. That movement of the sun moving in its trajectory of going back upwards to approach its highest point in the sky, which would be the summer solstice. But it still has to go through those chambers or those seasons or go through those cardinal points. Capricorn being a cardinal point representing, as they would say, death. And it needs to make his way back to the Tropic of Cancer, which would be the summer solstice or the first day of summer. So your first day of winter is represented by the winter solstice, solstice being sun still, sol, sun, stice, still, or non-movement. So you have 2 periods of the year where you have a solstice or a period of the sun being still. One is when it's at its lowest point, the winter solstice. One is when it's at its highest point, the summer solstice. The equal points on the sides are the equinoxes. And your four cardinal points, you still utilize the zodiac. The zodiac was even being utilized for timekeeping purposes. All of this is our science. Now, yeah, they hit you now with horoscope and all of that. I'm not going to say that's too much of the zodiac. It's a portion of it mixed, construed, mixed up, and diluted a little bit. However, at the same time, they utilize those same zodiac principles. We get hours from Horus. Horus, the horizon. Hours or hours. Why is the H silent in hours? There's no grammar, English, etymological reason why hour should have a silent H. It doesn't have it in house. So once again, we're getting in the trickery of the language. But at the same time, time is of the essence and weaved all through our culture. It's utilized to help us build on technology. It's used to help us build on civilization. A few weeks ago, we talked about spirit being breathing. The universe, even in itself, breathes. We utilize these higher thought sciences of weaving mythologies with some of the science and the facts and the time and the history that we deal with. It doesn't necessarily make it true, but it doesn't necessarily make it unfalse. The science or false. The sciences that is dealing with and what is breaking down is still there. The Greeks called time chronos. Now, a lot of them mistake, and you can look this up. They say Chronos is the god of time. Now, the Chronos that they say is the father of Zeus, and the Chronos that they say is the god of time are not the same Chronos. But that's another lesson I'll get into another time. But from Chronos, we get chronology, and a chronology is basically the study of events in a certain order. And that study of events in that certain order is what most now call history. But our history, even tampered with, most of the truth is still there. But you got to look to what was going on at the time. All of these things that's being utilized now and utilized against us was created mostly by us. Freemasonry or Masonic teaching uses Moorish culture to explain the same sciences. Most of the time, they're explaining us to us without being us, if you understand that. Most of the time, our brothers and sisters are lost, not understanding that that's their own culture that they're learning behind closed doors in secret. All of the symbols are still ours. The four creatures in Freemasonry are symbolic representations associated with the four fixed signs of the zodiac. Each creature has specific characteristics and meanings. Leo symbolizes strength, courage, and leadership. Taurus symbolizes stability, endurance, and hard work. Aquarius symbolizes intellect, innovation, and humanitarianism. Scorpio symbolizes vision, transformation, and rebirth. These creatures are associated with specific elements, qualities, and virtues, embodying various symbolic meanings within Freemasonry, related to personal growth, spiritual development, and enlightenment. So that's your lion, ox, man, and eagle. It's our culture. Many ways to break it down, depending on what aspect you come from or what teaching you come from. Time was always important because it was how we evolved. They say now we're in the age of Aquarius. When did it begin? Literally, time-wise. Some say it began 2012. 2012, December 22nd or December 21st. So the so-called Mayan calendar supposedly ended, or the age of Aquarius supposedly kicked in, supposedly. December 21st, 2012. The only reason I say supposedly is because our calendar system and the way that we calculate has been doctored and changed. And we're losing the benefits of understanding that science because we think most of it is a fad, like the horoscopes they keep pushing on us. But these are all actual sciences. Just the four cardinal points, just those four time periods alone, and what happens in between them. You can learn to plant food. You can learn to feed your family. You know the time periods that certain things can be planted. How many of us actually take the time to learn that now? Our babies out here now, when I say our babies, you can go to the age of about 25 or whatever. My oldest is 33. And they all still babies to me. And when I see what they're eating now, that's nothing like what we were eating as children, those of us who are 50 and above. And you look at what they're eating now. They're using the same sciences that we use for agriculture, and they're using it to create fake food. They're using the same science to create genetically modified food. And most of us don't know. We say we know how to cook, but if we still cooking the poison, what's the difference? You can go back thousands of years. In some way, form, or fashion, there was a form of zodiac in existence. There was astronomy in existence. Not just the 3,500 years ago or BC with the Babylonians, Chaldeans, Egyptians. Even before that, how much have we had that's been destroyed in time over and over again, and then we rebirth, redid it again, and then it got destroyed again, and then we rebirth, redid it again, and it got destroyed again. It was a purpose for burning the books. Right now, we're dealing with post-millennium. Even post-millennium has true science to it. And all of this that is our culture is still a part of it. Everywhere we look, every culture we look to, there's some form of astronomy, astrology, definitely mathematics in everything. Most places they're worshiping the tool, not realizing that it's just a tool. We deal in measurements, but nothing is precise nowadays. But if you check some of the ways they keep saying they're trying to better the calendar, better the time system, better the calculating system, so much so that they had to create organizations like the NIST just to try to make time calculation better. Why so much importance on time? And if you check with most nations, they have some form of organization that deals with that calculation. But ours was formed by Congress. The one here was formed by Congress in 1901, the NIST. When you look at these things, if it's important to them, why wouldn't it be important to us? Most of our babies is running around talking about that's in the past. It ain't got nothing to do with now. It's different now. That's too long ago. It's not that long ago. People still getting hung in the last 50 years. We still suffer from police brutality even now. And most of our babies is running around like they don't have a clue on what to do. We're not schooling them. Those who making money, your drug dealers and all of that, they got an ear. They got our baby's ear. Because at the end of the day, they got everybody chasing this fiat. We're taking the time to learn government principles right now. Our reasons for that is because it's necessary. We can't have a change without some form of knowledge and understanding of how to even enact that change. What is it that we're doing? I said it before, post-millennium was not a concept talked about not more than 10 years ago, but it's been around. Until Shem Malachi Bey, I had no clue what post-millennium was. We have a way to resurrect our government. But even in resurrecting our government, these sciences, understanding these sciences that's woven into the very fabric of majority of the nations on the planet. Our whole culture is based in civilization and growth. Everyone should want to evolve. No one should want to stay where they are. And on the many levels that we're being attacked, they got our babies running from science like it's boring. And if we don't take the time out to learn it ourselves so that we can actually further teach them, and here we're letting them get taught by, I don't want to say the enemy, because some of our brothers and sisters is teachers, but they're indoctrinated with teaching in a certain fashion, which may not be plausible to the health of melanated children. We'll argue about who's right, who's wrong, what religion is better, whose God is the better God. These are senseless debates. We can sit here and talk about time. What does time have to do with anything? A lot. Because they're using it to control every fabric of your being. They tell you when to be weak, and they tell you when your weak can end. They tell you when you're supposed to eat. You're supposed to eat breakfast in the morning, lunch in the middle of the day, dinner at night. Who came up with that ritual of eating? Time never was when man was not. What does that mean? What place does it have today? We see time being affected and controlled all around us every day. We don't think about it. Past, present, and future all exist at the same time. For every second that you're spiritual, for every second that you breathe, is gone. Can't get it back. You already breathed it. And the future is now. Because every second that goes by is the future from right now. These are high intellectual questions that the ancients posed to themselves. But they didn't get caught all up in it enough to where they couldn't feed theirs. There's been wars on the planet since it was only us. And there's probably been wars off the planet. Topic for another time. What benefits us now if time never was when man was not? What is the true focus on that? Why are we here? These classes that we have on a Moroccan Post is for us to learn proper law and proper understanding of law. Not just quoting things and then never go look at the case. Running in a court. Oh, you lack corpus delicti. You don't have an injured party. What do it mean? Have you looked up cases where they lacked or they didn't have corpus delicti, and did you look up what happened in those cases? Or are you just hearing it and just going to regurgitate it because somebody who's supposedly profound mentioned it? We need to do the research ourselves. We need to utilize our time. Getting into the zodiac, between everything being broken down into 12 signs, each sign having 3 deacons, all of these mathematical calculations and formulas were for a reason. They all corresponded with something in one of the heavenly bodies. This is our science, and we knew this. This same science we utilize to navigate the 7 seas and master them before anyone else. Astronomy is at the very core of everything we do, and it helps us to calculate time. It's a science that they're starting to do away with in most of the school system. They're starting to get now to the point where they say you don't need geometry. I don't know if anybody's paid attention to that, but they're taking most of the classes out here in Arizona. Most of the children only have to do about 3 classes a day in certain schools. And they're not being taught what's really necessary. Dealing with time. And I apologize because I really would like to show y'all my screen. Dealing with time. When we understand the ages and everything that builds up that whole science of the cycles, because that's what time pretty much is also the calculation of cycles. And within those cycles, them time periods, those epochs, those eras, different things went on that changed the way certain sciences were even looked at. But the one thing that didn't change was time. They came up with better ways to try to calculate time. From the sundial, the obelisk, down to the clock system and the watches. It's a lot of effort put towards mastering and calculating time. You can make a whole people believe that they're primitive. and come from a jungle lifestyle just because of what you show them on TV. They had a whole generation believe the root story. That's you.
Serious. Let's
Yes, sir.
address the word primitive, because that's been given a constructive meaning. We look at the primitive. Prime means first. The root word in primitive, PRIM, is, means first, as in print, prime numbers, prints, the M and N, the M and N transliterate. So yeah, you prince, princess, primal. So the Europeans have constructed the connotative, distorted, negative meaning and applied it to the word primitive to mean unsophisticated, uncultured, savagery, about when it actually means first. Primitive. So we are primitive. We are primitive. We are the first. Primogenitor, like the word primogenitor. We are the
And ever
primogenitor.
evolving.
Yes. So we are the primitive. First.
And that negative look on it at primitive being something uncivilized or savage is far from the truth, because why would you call it that? Or why would you call it that in comparison to modern times? If you was to compare modern times to what they call primitive, you wouldn't see too much of a difference, because every culture denoted being primitive at certain stages. So what I mean by that is this: the Asians boast over 5,000 years of culture. If they boast over 5,000 years of culture, how far back are they going in their primitive stages? Because their 5,000 years of culture, which we know still leads back to us, but it goes beyond 5,000 years. Certain of the Germanic tribes, or whatever the case may be, they'll trace certain things back to 4004 BC if they wanted to use a more Christianized era number. So they'll trace it back to 4004 BC. Would they consider Moses, Abraham, would they consider them primitive? Pyramids were being built, but they're primitive. So even though we know primitive is first, as the brother said, primogenitor, but in our primitive state, there was pyramids being built. There was dynasties around. There was writing around. They have it where if you're primitive, we didn't have writing.
Because they constructed a new meaning. They constructed. See, it's the Philip K. Dick, his profound quote. The basic tool for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. Those who control the meaning of words control the people who must use the words. So this is a classic example of the manipulation of words, and by manipulating the meaning, they manipulate the reality. So now we're talking about this is the great example here of the reality being manipulated, and that in the word primitive, where the masses of people, millions of people, will associate the word primitive to unsophisticated, savagery, uncultured. So their reality is being manipulated
Mm-hmm.
of what primitive is. Because primitive being first, and as you mentioned, that is that's advanced. And so we're talking of primitive, we're talking advanced civilization. The
Mm-hmm.
time period where civilization's at its highest, because it's at its primal state, its pure state, but the reality is being manipulated because the meaning is being manipulated. Once again,
Mm-hmm.
Philip K. Dick, the basic tool for the manipulation of reality is the manipulation of words. Those who control the meaning of words control the people who must use the words.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to drop that on everybody.
And while we running around with these definitions that they are placing on us, we're looking at primitive, we're looking at our ancients as savage. Because how many years ago before you're primitive? How far back do we got to go? How many thousands of years do we have to go back? We can say, okay, they was primitive back then. And we take these terms now that have been modernized with different meanings, just like the word nice, which meant ignorant, which now has been modernized to mean something pleasant. And we take these same words and put it on everything else, even ourselves. We should be glad to be primitive in a sense. Those that are primitive that we come from created all of this.
The word primitive would be analogous to the original people, the original people of the planet, the
Mm-hmm.
first people, the original people, the Aboriginal people, the autochthonous. So you would be let's give some synonyms. Let's provide some synonyms to the word primitive. Autochthonous, original people, the planet, first people of the planet, Aboriginal people. So you would have the word primitive in the circle, in the middle of the circle. Draw a circle and put primitive in the middle. And you have Aboriginal, first people, original people, ancient people, the ancient ones, the first people so that we can give a proper orientation to the word for the word primitive.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Just wanted to give
Right.
people, because this once again, this is dealing with the control, the manipulation of words, controlling our minds by manipulating words, manipulating our reality, controlling our reality, controlling our
Controlling our
lives,
time.
controlling our time, our actions, our buying patterns, our every aspect of our lives.
You're being told when you're supposed to do almost everything in your life right now at this moment. Most of us. We're being told when to work, eat, sleep, everything. Most of the time it's by someone else. Right now we have daylight savings time. Daylight savings time has been changed, I believe, in the last 50 years, probably 3 times. One of them by Bush Jr. And we look
Well,
at
you
why do they keep.
mentioned let's stress this real quick, serious. Because you
Go ahead,
mentioned
brother.
most of us. I would say all. I would say all of us. You mentioned you use the word most. I'm going to use the word all. You said that most. You say that we're being told what to do, and then you said most of us. You use most of us. I would say all of us. All right, being when you say told what to do, you don't mean in the literal sense. In the literal sense, told what to do in every aspect, but you mean in the more a control sense,
And
a
yeah,
control sense,
indoctrinated
like
in an
yeah,
indoctrinated
meaning
sense.
meaning that um controlling the economics, by controlling the economics, they control what you do.
Hmm.
Like they're not like in the literal sense saying, do this, do this. You don't mean that when you say told what to do. It's more a through a control mechanism by controlling the economics. That's is that what you mean by when you say told what to do? It's because it's being manipulated by the control. They have control of the economics.
It's being told what to do on a level of your choices are limited to what someone else provides. So the level of control, they're controlling you. They're telling you what to do pretty much because economically you don't have a choice. We know we're using fiat. We know we're using fiat, but we're economically in a position of where we don't have a choice. The stores that's supplying the food, they supply a certain type of food. How much is really healthy? You want to eat right. You want to eat healthy, but there's nothing healthy in the store. Why? Because someone else is controlling what you're eating. You have control of nothing in the economy except the spending. You're a consumer.
They don't even control that. By serious, I would say that we don't even have control over the spending because if you're not controlling the economy, the economics, you're not controlling the spending. Meaning that, let me explain what I mean by that. Your spending is limited based on how much finance you have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you so there's a there's a control of the spending based on how much finance you have, things like that. There's going to be a big control because you got what they call the de-dollarization. The
Mm-hmm.
de-dollarization is and it's moving, it's sped up. And Donald Trump is threatening. Donald Trump is doing his stronghold, threatening. I'm going to make them. He's on his presidential campaign and he's doing this stronghold. I'm going to make them. You know what I mean? It's not good to get away from the dollar. I'm going to make them. You know what I mean? You're not going to make Donald Trump. Hear me out, Donald Trump. You ain't going to make them do anything. You ain't going to make them do anything. So now you put the stronghold bully. So now you're creating enemies. Whereas before, well, the dollar, means good for the economy and good for the world economy and the dollar. You're not coming that way now. It's you're going to make them. I'm going to apply 100% sanctions. All right, what happens when you try to stronghold, when you try to bully somebody? That's somebody that can fight back.
They
Right?
fight
We're not
back.
talking about now. Remember, they can fight back now. Russia, China, Brazil, South Africa. Remember, other nations. Saudi Arabia ended that relationship. Saudi Arabia did not renew that relationship, that contract with the United States. Remember that contract, 1993, where the only way you can buy oil is through what they call the quote unquote dollar. Saudi Arabia did not renew the contract. Saudi Arabia is joining BRICS.
Mm-hmm.
All the nations, BRICS, they just had the 15th annual BRICS summit. So other nations are joining BRICS. So actually the only issue that Kamala Harris and Donald Trump should be discussing is the de-dollarization on their campaign. They got these two presidential candidates, these two United States presidential candidates. The only issue that matters, is the de-dollarization.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever issue they discuss other than that is tertiary, is not even, it doesn't matter. Whatever issue that those two presidential candidates discuss, it doesn't matter. The major issue is the de-dollarization. That is major.
Mm-hmm.
What did Donald Trump say? It is like, and he's right, his statement is correct. It is like losing the Revolutionary War. Donald Trump equated de-dollarization to losing the Revolutionary War and losing a war. He's correct. Now, Kamala Harris is not talking about it. She's vice president. So, because she's vice president. Donald Trump is not in office. Kamala Harris is in office. She's vice president. So she doesn't want to create, she can't speak like Donald Trump. See, Donald Trump would say all that because he's not in office. And he probably would say all that anyway if he was in office anyway. But Kamala Harris is not president. Kamala Harris is vice president. So she can't speak all loosely like that. She's vice president. All right, go ahead, Osiris.
So when we look at all that, though, everything right now, we can see it changing around us, whether you want to call it the age of Aquarius or whatever the case may be. Everything is changing around us. Truth is definitely coming out. But with every truth, there's still more falsehood that they're going to come with, too. They're going to distract us. You think of it like this. Look how long most of us have been distracted by the birth, death, rebirth of the sun in almost every religion on the planet. We will argue about Jesus. We will argue about being right about Jesus. There's nobody else that's God but Jesus. Not realizing that whole story is weaved in a lot of cultures all over the planet. And they don't necessarily have to have the name of Jesus, but that same story is weaved within the culture all over the planet. The birth, death, rebirth of the sun. And we get caught up in the story part. We getting caught up in the feeling of the Holy Ghost and all of that they're instilling in us. But it's still not getting around the fact that it's the same story. Birth, death, rebirth. Not only does the sun go through that, everyone goes through that. Things in life go through that. If energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed, then we all go through cycles of birth, death, rebirth. Because that would mean death is still not the end. We can get philosophical with it and all of that, but at the end of the day, the same thing that the sun does is what we do. You can philosophize it how you want. You can religionize it or religionize it how you want. You can Masonicize it how you want. It's the same thing. And they got us spending so much time on the story that we're not looking at the reality and the science behind it. They're utilizing those same stories that are true. I'm not saying that they're not true, just not in its presentation to the flock. Most of the time, its presentation is not for beneficial purposes. Sometimes it's to edge you into a certain mindset to where your critical thinking shuts down and you deal in a belief system. So you're no longer using critical thinking. You're looking at everything as, oh, this is fact. The Son of God walked on water. Yes, the Son of God walked on water. We see it at sunset, especially if you are near water. We got so caught up in the symbols and the symbolism and looking at that as a reality that we forgot what time it was. I like utilizing time never was when man was not, because a lot of people, a lot of brothers and sisters can't really explain it. They can't really break it down except minutely. We are affected by time no matter what. That's what they say. We're affected by time. We are an evolution of time because every physical person started off as a seed first. You evolved into what you are now as men and women, meaning that you are walking time. You are time. Time never was when man was not, because you are time. When did time need to be calculated? When you existed and needed to calculate it. But at the present time, our time is being controlled. We can get into the whole science. I can break it down through the zodiac, how time's supposed to be. We can get to the solstice, the equinoxes. We can go on many aspects of it. But you as a person, how do you control your personal time? Most of us let someone else control it for 16 hours a day, and then we finally take that 8 hours or whatever and sleep. That's when we have control. But who says we even have control of it then? Who said you're supposed to sleep 8 hours? Who said that that's what the body needs? Who said the body needs 8 hours of rest? Why 8 hours? It's a third of 24. Why not 6, which would be a quarter of 24? That concept of 8 hours of sleep, was that something that we created? And if we're sleeping with the wrong sleeping patterns, that means the serotonin and the melatonin in our body is off. How much is sleep a necessity? Our time is controlled, and where we think we have control, when you look at everything as a whole, how much of yourself do you really control? How much of your time do you really control? Did you control the time that said you're going to be here listening to, you know, me speak, Brother Ab speak? Did you control that time that said you're going to do that? Or did we control it by setting the time that we're going to speak? How much of your time do you control? It's not a vacuum just way back then in the past, back when we were primitive. They control the word primitive for us. We just see it as savage. We see it as back when we were in the jungles, running around with spears and bones in our nose and all of that. That's what they equate with primitive for us, and we just suck it up. They took roots, said that you came on slave ships from over there. They did it so well, they had to indoctrinate you more by making it into a movie. Think of, if I don't know if anybody ever remember, or anybody who's knowledgeable of the Bible, but when Moses came out of the mountains and he so-called came with the 10 Commandments, and he seen the children of Israel sitting there worshiping the golden calf, what did he do? They tell us that he threw those tablets down and the earth supposedly swallowed some of them up. That's what they tell us. That's what they show us on TV when you look at Yul Brynner burying Moses and all of that. They say he come down out the mountains, he see them worshiping the golden calf, and he threw them down on the ground. That ain't written nowhere in the Bible. He said he pulled together the sons of Levi, pulled them to the side, and said, in the next morning, slay them. But the picture that they've been showing us for decades is him coming down out that mountain, seeing them worshiping the golden calf, and throwing the commandments down on the ground. That same Yul Brynner Moses story they've been feeding us. Most of us still believe that today. And it's nowhere written in the Bible. They indoctrinated us through that visual for decades. And yet we read in the Bible and never see what's being said. We always see that visual. Moses came, I ask people, even today, what did Moses do when he came down out the mountains and he seen them worshiping the golden calf? He threw the 10 Commandments on the ground. It's nowhere written in the Bible. They controlled us through a visual, and it kept that thought for decades until you actually take the time to wake up and catch up with the times. Not only do they control our time, they control the very fabric of our way of life by controlling the time. They know of the time when we were at our highest. They also know how to keep that away from us to keep them at their highest. It's science. If they're a Slavic descent, would you really want to have that as a nationality? You would change it too. You would do everything in your power to change it too. Man, know thyself. Know your enemy as well. Everybody running around, man, know thyself. How you gonna know yourself when they hiding it from you and they giving you what you should know? They let Liz Taylor be Cleopatra one time, and for decades nobody questioned that the Egyptians might not have been Caucasians. It took later generations to figure that out. Even though a few of our older brothers and sisters was mentioning it, but Elizabeth Taylor was Cleopatra for decades to more and non-more. While they're controlling the time, they're controlling our perception. While they're controlling our economy, they're controlling our perception. While they're controlling our economy, they're controlling our nutrition. While they're controlling our economy, they're controlling our critical thinking. They're giving you definitions to you. They're giving you definitions to the words that you speak, the spells that you cast. They're giving you definitions of the very spells that you cast. They control the definitions. How good are your spells? How good are your hekkas? How good are your mantras? When they giving you modern definitions and modern science for something ancient, how good are they working for you? How's the voodoo that you do? How's it working for you? If you're using modern connotation on everything you're utilizing, you tell me. And controlling the words that we use, they control the very mind that thinks of them and expresses them. Your very expression of yourself is based on someone else's definition of you. My man Nice on the basketball court. Really? Is he? I'm a black male. I don't know. My skin ain't that dark, but I think I'm a little more, I think I'm lighter than black. They're controlling the definition of the adjectives that you utilize. And the adjective comes before the object. You ever notice in Latin, the object comes before the adjective? Any of my Spanish brothers and sisters, if you got a blue car, you say car blue. Because you talk about the car first, then you describe it. We talk about the description first, and then the object. So most of us get caught up in the description. That's not the object. But we treat the description as the object. We fall victim to things of not knowing. We fall victim to not knowing a lot. And even the things we have proper knowledge of, we don't have the knowledge on how to fight it. We know we're using fiat. How come we don't stop? Ain't no choice. Because your economy is being controlled. Your money's being controlled. And you're being manipulated to have to utilize that fiat currency because you have no choice. And the only way to have a choice, we all got to come together and create change. But we want to argue about who got the better God. We want to argue about, I want to learn civics. I want to deal with history. Yeah. You're not a Moor unless you're not a Moorish American unless you're in the Moorish Science Temple. With all this division, when we gonna get it together? How we gonna get it together? We under the same spells. We can't come together to break it. We'll attack each other before we attack any enemy. My number one enemy is me. That's my number one enemy. And I'll wage war on me. All the time. We all do. Trying not to do the things that we know we're not supposed to. You're waging war on yourself. You're supposed to. It's part of knowing and mastering self. You wage war on yourself because you're your first number one enemy. To allow yourself to fall victim to the traps that we keep falling for out here. Some of us need to wage war on ourselves first. Man, know thyself. Know the time. Time never was when man was not. I took this time. I didn't want to give you brothers and sisters dogma. We can get into a lot of different aspects of time. On a base level of it all, the time is now. We've been saying it for umpteen years. The time is now to make change. If not you, then who? I don't want to wait around. I'm going to do everything I can do for mine. And when I say mine, I'm talking about my nation as well as mine being my clan. I don't utilize the word family because it pretty much breaks down etymologically the house of slaves or house of servants. My matriarch is not my wife because wife denotes property. I wage war on myself from not, on a small level, to not utilize the language in the connotative way that they have it set up for us to use it. It's small. It's a small war against myself. To not to utilize the term black when describing myself or others. You waging war against yourself because you've already been indoctrinated to do that. I wasn't going to get into the dogma of everything. We can get into the symboliography. We can get into breaking down the zodiac and the masonry. We can get into breaking down time as far as masonry. At the end of the day, the time is now. We need to make the changes to do what we need to do. Some of us need to function strictly on commerce. Some of us need to function on knowing how to run government. Some of us need to function on how to litigate law. Some of us need to function on how to grow food or deal with agriculture and agronomy. Some of us need to function in different areas of life that we need to sustain us as a nation. Everybody is not into nutrition. Everybody is not in the law. Everybody is not in the history. Everybody is not in the symbolism or symboliography. My advice, to get caught up in it, learn to control the time, learn to get in you first. Have an understanding that with the way things are right now, it's going to take time. It's not an overnight success. It's not an overnight thing. But it's mandatory, because if not, what's going to stop them from doing it again? They are slowly poisoning the food that we intake. It ain't even slowly. And yet we still, most of us, still go to the store and buy it. I'm in Arizona. I don't know if anybody's seen the clone chicken that be going around now, but chicken got real cheap. If anybody's paying attention, they got many distractions for us out here. We're being attacked on many levels. Most of the masculine is being effeminized. Most of the feminine is being masculinized. Negative ain't supposed to be positive, and positive ain't supposed to be negative. We have a lot to change. We have a lot to look to self for first. I don't want to keep sounding like a cliche, but with all the cliche, we still ain't getting it. We still arguing about the wrong things. How many of us is investing in a community child to go to college, or investing in any child? It don't have to be just your child. How many have seen that child in the neighborhood and you see they real smart, they real intelligent, but they don't have what's necessary to thrive? How many help their family out a little bit just because they see he's special or she's special? He or she gonna do something later if they got the right guidance. How many are helping with the guidance? Or would you be mad because it ain't your child? Would you have ego? Would you just say, nah, it ain't my business? We got a lot of people that just say, nah, it ain't my business. But we want change. We want things to be different. But we ain't doing nothing different. Most of my outreach out here, my younger brothers be arguing with me all the time. Nah, we need industrious Moors. We need commerce. We need money, you know. And they right. But how many more is going to take the time to learn the government and the governmental principles and know how to run government for the nation. When they go out here, what they do, they campaign. What are they campaigning for? Money. So if they campaigning for money so they can run an election, why can't we start to put the money away to learn and run a government that's ours? That within international law says we can resurrect. United States didn't say it. Not U.S. code, not uniform commercial code, international law. Post-millennium is real. How many of us is going to take the time to really understand what that means and execute what's needed to make it happen with those who think alike? We can talk all day. We can build on different sciences, maths, history, whatever. It's cute. It's fun. How many of us is actually executing what we're speaking or what we know? How many of us are teaching that to the babies? How many of us are teaching that to anybody? I have much appreciation for the brothers that endure this fight because it ain't easy. No one's getting paid for this. I'm not getting paid to speak to you. Brother Ab's not getting paid to speak to you. This is love. If it's about love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, this is love. Because we're not in your pockets to take anything away from your babies. Whether you like what we're doing or you don't like what we're doing. If you don't like it, don't like it. But we ain't tell you you had to pay for nothing to get it. Come get this knowledge. Moroccan Post School of Government. With no tuition. Find somewhere else that teach that. With no tuition. Without trying to go into your pockets. Time never was when man was not. Because time and man are one and the same. Time exists because you exist. The calculations thereof. No dogma. You. Master time. Master you. And let's take the time now to break the programming. It's been going on too long. It's been over 100 years. More should have knew something about post-millennium. It's not a new concept. Let's get with the time because the time is now. With that, I say peace. Brother Ab. I guess Brother Ab is off right now. If anybody need to check me out or check out some of our information, you can go to For the Love of More 372. That's my Telegram page. Lots of information on it. Get on it. Check it out. I'm out here in Phoenix, Arizona. You can give me a call at 602-775-2581. That's Rosarius L. 602-775-2581. I speak and I build with my brothers and sisters. I ain't unreachable. If any questions, I guess the brothers will let me know.
Brother, did a wonderful job. I want to thank you again. You've been here for 4 or 5 times already. You'll be back several more times. This was
Yeah, I'm gonna
very
buy another laptop so that next time I'm actually ready.
all right. You were ready. You were ready, brother. Excellent, brother. Excellent. Thank you. So for the love of more, spell it out, Vasirius.
For the love of more. The number 4, DALUVOFMUUR 372. For the love of more.
That's his Telegram page.
That's the Telegram page. Yeah, it should be on the screen right there.
Oh, yeah, it's on the screen. Yes. For the love of more, it's on the screen, y'all. That's his Telegram page. He gave out his number. This brother has done some, I've known for about, how many, 25 years, you say?
About 20, about 26, 25.
Yeah. Right.
1999, 2000.
That's all right. That's about 25, 24, 25. Yes. So thank you for joining us here on Moorish Monday with Abdullah Il Talimo Sipe, Magnet Pyramid Crystals YouTube page. You see the link below. Below you see all night long it's been going on. Mooresandmasonry.org. Get my books, Moors and Masonry Part 1, Moors and Masonry Part 2, How Venus and Moon Rule, Etymology and Vocabulary, Supplementary 1, the Masonic Compass Square, the Connection to Mind Keeping, and Illuminati and Illumination of Mind. 4, we have free courses on the Moroccan Post Media YouTube page. We have the Moorish Treaty Protection and Constellations course, which embodies 12 classes. We have the Moorish Body Politic Formation course, that embodies 12 classes. We have 6 sessions of the Moorish Investigative Research Committee. We just had our 6th one this past Saturday. Using Legal Principles to Draft Motions and Pleadings Part 2. So we have Using Legal Principles to Draft Motions and Pleadings Part 1. Using Legal Principles to Draft Motion and Pleadings Part 2. We have the Jurisprudence / the Philosophy of Law, and using the philosophy of jurisprudence and philosophy of law to run government and to handle legal cases. We have the Application of Law and Evidentiary Standards Part 1 and 2. That's the Application of Law and Evidentiary Standards Part 1 and 2. We have the introduction to Part 1 is the Introduction to Criminal Investigation. So Session 1, Introduction to Criminal Investigation. Session 2, the Application of Law and Evidentiary Standards Part 1. Section 3, the Application of Law and Evidentiary Standards Part 2. Session 4, using legal principles to draft motions and pleadings. Session 5, philosophy of law and legal principles to use to run government and to handle legal cases. Session 6, which we just passed Sunday, is using legal principles to draft motions and pleadings. Session part 2. Go to the Moroccan Post Media YouTube page. That's the Moroccan Post Media YouTube page and a host of other classes that we have. All right. Once again, thank you for, until next week, I will be doing etymology and semantics part 2, etymology and semantics part 2 next week. So I'll see you until next week. This is, once again,